Hello and welcome. My name is Lexi, and today we are taking a look at Bobbi Brown Holiday. And I picked up a few of the items. There's actually a pretty extensive holiday collection this year. So there are two of these Luxe Cheek and Highlighter palettes. This is the lighter one of the two. So we're going to take a look at this as well as a comparison with this palette from this summer. See how similar they are. And then they also released new Luxe Eye Duos. So I picked up two of those. There are technically three shades that should be coming out, but so far only two of them have been available. And then, of course, we have a whole bunch of other products, different like lip kits and so forth. But I picked up the two Luxe Duos and this Cheek and Highlighter palette. So let's go ahead and get started. And we're going to start off by swatching this palette. First, let me just show you the packaging here. So you can see it's like a beveled, gold look palette. You can see that we have a bit of a pyramidal shape on the top. However, it is not so tall. Like you can see that there's a ridge here. It's not so tall that it makes storage an issue. And I just want to note one other thing. As I mentioned, we do have this ridge here making the beveled edge not really an issue with storage on this palette. However, I do want to note that it is slightly higher on the eye duos, so they will not stack completely flush. So just something to note there. So that's something to note. We do have a magnetic closure here. There is a layer of plastic on here that you can pull off for the mirror. And then we have three shades. So this is the lighter of the two palettes. We do have a deeper one as well. And we have three shades. So this blush is Aura, which is a radiant blush. And you can see this is a satin finish and it's going to be a peachy pink. So you can definitely see that this is, if you think of the carnation pink crayon from Crayola, it's just slightly warmer than that, but very similar. Then we have Afternoon Glow is the highlighting powder. And you can see that this has a bit of a peachy bronzy kind of look. And you can see you can make this really intense, but you can also use it pretty lightly. I have it on fairly lightly right now. And then this Brilliant Bronze is another radiant blush. So you can use this as a blush or a bronzer, but you can see that, again, we have some peachy orangey hues to this. It does run warm. Let me just go ahead and buff this one out so you can see that as well. And you can see we do have some orangey undertones in there. Let me go ahead and buff out the blush at the top here. You can see it's a nice soft pink. So these are the Luxe formulas. We'll talk about this in a minute, but I do have a couple of different brush applications. So you can see that you can get a light look, you can build it up a little bit, but they are a very versatile formula. For the duos, you can see that we have, this cute little compact. This does have a mirror in it. There is no room for utensils. This is going to be our first duo, and this one is actually called Midnight Toast, which I keep mixing that up with the brown duo. I feel like Midnight Toast should be that. But we have a rich luster and a rich matte in each duo. So this first shade, the light pink, is called Frosted. And you can see it's a very light pink shimmery shade with a little bit of a golden flip to it. Not much, just a tiny bit. And then we have this rich matte, which is called Supernova. And again, we have kind of a peachy rose shade here. Think of Dusty Rose with just a smidge of peach in it. So that would be our lighter duo. The next one is a bit more pigmented. And this one here is called Midnight Toast. I'm sorry, Last Dance. So this one's the Last Dance, but we have Dream Gleam for the rich luster and Make a Toast for the matte. That's why I keep mixing up the names here, because the Make a Toast makes me think this is the Midnight Toast palette. You can see that our shimmer here is significantly more pigmented than the pink. We have a brown base with bronze shimmer, and then we have a rich brown matte. You can see we do have a bit of a reddish hue to this. So this is going to be a warm brown with just a little bit of sienna mixed into this. So again, if we're looking at acrylic crayons, think of the classic brown mixed with the sienna brown crayon. And that's the shade that you get here. It's just a little bit lighter than sienna, about the same depth as a Crayola brown. And then this shimmery shade here, it's just gorgeous. So let's move on to some demos, and let's go ahead and start off with the eye demos briefly. So the duos, I first put them on, to show you the shades using the Esom W23 brush. And this brush can be used wet or dry. It's really great. It's pretty, it's a firm brush. So, it's going to be able to pack on the color well, but you can see in demos, I will also use some softer brushes. So you can see that you can get a nice soft buffed look with these shades. But if you want to pack on a bit more color, you can use something a little bit stiffer like this Esom brush. If you would like even more color, go ahead and use your finger. So for the eye swatches here, I'm showing it to you with the Esom W23 and then going over on top of that with a finger application. You can see it's going to be a much richer application. Now, as for the duos, we have 1.5 grams for each shadow. So it's a 3-gram palette in general. And these are going to be our Luxe formula from Bobbi Brown. So we have a 1-year shelf life, and these are made in Italy. If you're familiar with the Luxe formula, these have a kind of like a dry putty-like texture, the mattes in particular. So they have a little bit of grip to them. They go on kind of like a dried cream. And, they have some grip. They stay very well. Wear time on these is great, and they make a really nice base. The shimmers are going to be like a metallic shimmer shade. And again, the one in the Last Dance, the brown duo, that one is definitely going to be very pigmented. You can definitely use that one on its own or pair it with the matte shadow. But in the Midnight Toast, the pink palette, you can see that that shimmer shade is going to be significantly lighter. And although it is a pink shimmer, the base on here is more of a sheer pink. So you can definitely, you're not going to get any opacity using that shimmer shade on its own. So if you have to cover like veins or anything like that, you probably do want to use a base like the matte shade there. And you can get a really beautiful soft look with this duo. So as we're looking at the demos, I wore the pink duo, by itself the one day. I absolutely love that look. It's just such a great everyday go-to look. You can make it as shimmery as you want. And then the brown duo, you can really glam that up and you can make that much more pigmented. But if you want, you can make that also a lot more subtle. So I think the duos are very versatile. And I have to say, I personally have always enjoyed the Bobbi Brown Luxe eyeshadow formulas. So I think these are a great addition to the brand. And I hope that they consider making duos, a more permanent choice in the brand. I'd love to see the third option as well. So I don't know if that's going to be coming to the US or what. I haven't seen anything about it other than seeing it in the original promo photos a couple months back. So let's just do a few comparison swatches and then we'll move on to the cheek palette. Now, just a note, I know some people have been asking me to swatch Bobbi Brown Incandescent shade with the Chantecaille holiday shade, and unfortunately, I do not have that palette any longer. At first, I was looking all over, couldn't remember what I did with it, and then a friend reminded me I had actually given it to her because it had sold out last year. It was in the holiday palette, I believe, or one of those limited edition palettes. It had sold out before she was able to purchase it. So I ended up giving it to her and I don't have it any longer. So unfortunately I don't have that one to swatch. But let's go through what I do have from Bobbi Brown. So this was holiday a few years ago, and these are the Luxe Encore eyeshadow palette in bronze. So just in case you guys have this is more of a creamy formula. It's a little bit different, but I did want to go ahead and swatch these. Let me go ahead and swatch the two brown shades here. And we're just going to put them down here. So these are a little bit of a creamier formula, but you can see that the shades are very similar to the duo you get in here. And I have to say, I really like this formula as well. I haven't seen this one again since this palette, but I really like it. So I'm going to skip the golds because they don't go with anything here. But let's also take a look at this palette. So this is a new palette from Bobbi Brown, the Luxe Eye and Cheek palette. And this is the Moonstone palette. And we don't have, a ton of shades here that are going to be similar. But let's take a look at this one here down here, which is the Antique Rose. And let's see how that compares to that in the Duo. And you can see this is a little bit rosier, whereas the one in the Duo which is called Supernova, is going to be peachier. So just a little difference there. And then we also have this one here, which is called Malted Pink. Let's go ahead and put that right there. And let me get a little bit more of that there so we can see that a little better. And you can see that is actually going to be a bit more similar. So we've got a little bit more brown in here, but I think those shades, maybe they're like 99% a match. So those two are pretty close. This shimmery shade here, we actually don't have one like that in this palette. But let's just go ahead and swatch these. So we'll swatch these two champagne shades here anyway. So these are going to be Moonstone and Lunar. So let's just go ahead and put them here. And you can see these are going to be more champagne. This one has a pink flip. It's like kind of white with a pink flip. And then we might as well swatch this shade here, which is called Mystic. And it doesn't match, but I have to say I do really like this palette. And these shades will really pop on top of a dark base. So that's it for those. And then this is the Luxe eyeshadow, which is a foil formula in the shade Opalescent. So let's just go ahead and add that one too. And you can see that it doesn't quite go with anything here. So those are kind of my closest Bobbi Brown shades to these eye duos. And then let's take a look at a couple of the Chantecaille luminescent eye shades. So this is Zebra, which is a rose gold shade. Let's go ahead and put that one right there. You can see this is going to be peachier than the frosted shade in the Midnight Toast Duo. Let's go ahead and look at the Gold Leaf shade, the Radiant Gold Eye Shimmer, which is the holiday shade from Chantecaille. We'll put that right there. And you can see this is more of a true rose gold. It's gold with like this rose shift to it. I actually think it's a really beautiful shade. And then we have the shade Lion from Chantecaille. I think this is going to be, it's going to be more yellow, more of a true gold. And then this one here is going to be our Giraffe shade. And let's see how this one compares. And that's going to be cooler in tone than any in the Duo here. Let's look at a few more. This one here is the new shade Roan from Chantecaille. And let's see how this compares with that shimmer. Oh, no, nothing like it. My mistake there. Yeah, I was thinking that might be kind of close to one of the shades in the Last Dance Duo. Then we have this brown. This is the Wild Bronze from the Leopard shade. Let's go ahead and squeeze that one in here. No, that's going to be cooler in tone. It's also going to be more of a satin finish in comparison to the other shades. And then this is Bay, which is also one of the new shades from Chantecaille. And I think this is going to be cooler in tone. It is cooler in tone, but it is pretty close to the deeper shade in the Last Dance Duo. So those are pretty close. So this is Bay from Chantecaille. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the Cheek and Highlight palette. So looking at the demos here, you can see I've used this, with a couple of different brushes, so you can kind of see, you can use it with a stiff brush to really build up that color. You could, use this with a fluffier brush and get like a lighter wash. You can build it up from there. Just like the Luxe eyeshadows, these formulas have a bit of grip to them. They're, again, kind of like that dried cream formula. So, they have a little bit of grip. They are fairly easy to pick up, but not as easy as a powder. And yet you can really get a really soft look with these or build them up. So they're pretty versatile. The blushes in the palette are 4 grams each, and the highlighting powder is 3.5 grams each. And these are, supposedly new shades. So we've got Aura, the Radiant Blush, Brilliant Bronze, also a radiant blush. And when they say radiant, we don't see any glitter or shimmer in here, but it does have a satin finish. And then the highlighting powder is Afternoon Glow, and that is definitely going to be a metallic finish there. And just like the eye duos, these are made in Italy. We have a mirror in the top half of the palette, and there is no room for utensils. The actual embossing on the products in here mimics that of the exterior. So I think it's a really beautiful palette. It makes a really great gift, and we do have a magnetic closure on this. I like how they have released two palettes, two different color stories for this, but I do have to say that this does lean a little warm. It looks a little bit cooler in the pan, but when you put it on my skin, which is actually neutral with slightly cool overtones to it, that makes it definitely look a bit warmer. So, which is pretty much par for the course for Bobbi Brown products. They typically tend to lean a little bit warm. So let's go ahead and move on to some comparisons. I wanted to start off with this palette from this summer. So this is actually fabric, and it wasn't available for a very long time. This is a Sculpt and Glow palette. The darker version for this is available still on the Bobbi Brown website, but the lighter one has been sold out for a while. And this, we're looking at approximately the same amount of product here. So in this palette here for the summer, these are all 4.5 grams each for each of the three things, but it looks like we have about the same volume of product. Now, some of these are not going to be new shades. So we have this highlighting powder in Pink Glow. This is our traditional, classic, Bobbi Brown highlighter shade. That's the Pink Glow. And you can see that the Afternoon Glow is going to be significantly warmer, and it has more of a coppery bronze hue to it in comparison. Now the blush here, this is going to be the shade Pink Glow, and you can see that it's going to be a bit more pigmented. It's a brighter pink. It's a bit more of a pop, but tonally they both have the same amount of warmth, but this is just going to be a little bit deeper, and it actually has just a smidge more red in it than you can see in the holiday palette. And then we have Golden Light, which is a bronzer shade. And you can see that Golden Light is going to be fairly similar. It's actually ever so slightly cooler. It's a little bit more brown. And I would have to say that even though it's not labeled as a radiant blush, I would say that it has the same finish. They're both going to be more of a satin finish here for the blushes and the bronzers here. So this palette, slightly different, but the bronzer and the blush are fairly close. Your highlighting shade is going to be a bit different. Now, I also want to take a look at this highlighter from Bobbi Brown. This is Quartz Glow. This is one of her permanent ones. And this is actually going to be a bit more golden. Let's see where we can fit that. So it's more of a golden champagne. You can see it's actually definitely more champagne, but it has more yellow in it. And then let's take a look at Moonstone Glow from this palette. And again, this is going to be a bit more champagne as well. And let's see how we'll squeeze that in between. And you can see this is going to be less yellow than the Quartz Glow. But again, we don't have that kind of bronzy shimmer in there. So those are my comparisons for the Cheek and Highlight palette. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this collection. Overall, I think it's a really pretty collection, but like many holiday collections, we're seeing very similar products to what we see in previous things and just your special packaging. So I do really love the duos. I think it's really nice to have them as a duo, and I hope that's something that becomes permanent. I think this palette is very nice. However, it is a very similar color story to ones that she has brought out in the past, or not she, since she's not with the company anymore, but the brand Bobbi Brown. So let me know what you think of this collection. And I would have to say overall, I think it's a nice, solid collection, and there are just so many options. And yeah, I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you very soon.